Hi, welcome to Humanrich, where you'll learn about the humans that are part of every business equation and can make or break a business. So, as we forget them too often, those humans, we need to make sure that we don't forget them because what we do as human, we don't forget what we do when we go to work. So, we need to expect to give them a personalized experience to make them feel as when they shop on Amazon. Because as I said, when they go to work, they don't forget what they do as human. It's why we can continue to have approaches that are convenient for us, but we need to have approaches that are relevant for them at the right moment. I'm Hugo Hamel, founder of Enrich3, a personalization marketing agency for B2B businesses. Today, our today's guest is Stapho Thienpont. Sorry about that. And he's the founder of the Marketing Family. Like us, he's taking the time to walk us through the human-centered approaches for social media content and outreach, but more precisely about the difference between trying to hang out on a platform versus joining a community. So we're going to learn about how we can humanize our marketing and grow your online sales. So now before we start, thanks for taking the time for joining us, Stapho. It's really appreciated for you to take the time to be here and be part of HumanRich. But as we're all human-centered, I'd like to ask you my first question. Like, what is the one thing that most people don't know about you, and something that you might have never mentioned online? I know that you do jujitsu, right? And
Mm-hmm.
is there anything else that like is not on any social media platform?
Ooh, I don't know. I talk a lot of shit on the internet. Um, well, I think one thing that I haven't mentioned so much. I mentioned a lot that I like to read, but I haven't really talked so much that I'm really into like Stoic philosophy lately. So I've been reading like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius and some of Ryan Holiday's books, and I'm really trying to put that into practice every single day. So just yesterday, I was thinking about this quote: uh, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. If you don't feel harmed, you haven't been." Or it was by Marcus Aurelius or something along those lines. And quotes like this, they really speak to me, and I try to contemplate on them and try to let them like bleed into my life and how I react to stuff.
Awesome. I don't know if it's you that talked about a book that was called "You Can't Break Me" from like a Marine, U.S. Marine, I think. No, because it reminds me of that kind of. It's a book about like how I think he was black and he was in the Marine stuff like that, and he had to go through a whole process of kind of bad, not bad influence, but bad external influence, and it kind of that sentence of Marcus Aurelius kind of reminds me of that book a bit. Might be a book of your for your list for next time.
I haven't read that one yet, but it does sound interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I spend a lot of time researching psychology, also old school stuff, and I use that as a basis for all of my marketing. So when I'm crafting a message, I'm always looking at like the hero's journey and how people perceive information and what people really need in order to make sense of something. And I would say that's a lot more of an inspiration for me than the marketing books that I've read, because I always start with how does the brain actually work, and then try to take it from there.
That's really good because like it's kind of how creativity works also. It's like you need to kind of like get some dots from everywhere and then connect them all, so that's how you get more creative. Awesome. Okay, so tell me more about your journey into the human-centered social media content and outreach, like from the very first beginning. Like you said that you like to probably read about different type of subjects, but like when did all of that start? Like, what is the really first beginning, like the first step that you took initially?
Well, I would have to. So I studied a little bit of psychology in high school, and I also got a lot from my mom, who was some sort of she was teaching a framework called Avatar or something, Avatar, and then something else I don't remember. Uh, and it's a branch of positive psychology, so psychology that's meant to help people improve themselves. So that is what kind of gave me like an insight into marketing, and then into psychology, and then the next thing I did was I actually spent a lot of time writing jiu-jitsu articles. That's what I was writing about when I was living in the gym to make some money. And then I figured that I like both of those, and that's how I got into marketing. But from day one, I've always been focused on how do people work, and how can I play into that. So I guess I'm repeating myself a little bit, but that's really where it comes from.
That's a really good beginning. But do you think that like the you had if I'm not wrong, you had the photography Facebook groups. I don't know if it's before or after the jiu-jitsu articles that you were writing. Um, but do you think that this also had influence, or like the very first step was the jiu-jitsu and your mom with her psychology background?
So actually, the videography group I started that was much later. So I first
Okay.
started doing a little bit of marketing, and then I noticed that there was actually a lot of video involved in marketing. So that's when I found a mentor to teach me about videography, and then I put two and two together and growth hacked like a little Facebook group for videographers in Belgium, and that was like the second community, the third community that I built. Uh, and for that one, it was really interesting because I had a friend, videographer friend, and he noticed that there was a really big lack of a real community for videographers. So there's no place in Belgium where videographers get together and share jobs, share gear, maybe even like talk about like the law surrounding drone photography and that kind of stuff. And we figured that there was no real cohesive community. And what we did was we did actually a big cold outreach campaign, talking to their needs, talking to the human need of needing a community, and then guiding them towards our Facebook group. And it's now by far the biggest Facebook group in Belgium for videographers. But for sure, that was something I did a little bit later. Uh,
That's amazing, like to being able to grow like one of the biggest community for Belgium. But out of curiosity, just because you said that you've done some outreach campaigns in the beginning for that group, if you would have to, if you like your actual you would go back in time, talk to the like the younger Stapho at the time that was doing the outreach campaign, what would you tell him to kind of change in his campaign? Now that you know more about like the human psychology and stuff like that, like what kind of what you did wrong at the time, and like you would like to tell the younger staff of what to do best.
so actually, it's really funny because on this campaign, I accidentally sent like 150 or 500 people the link to the tutorial I used to scrape their data and send them messages. So I would tell myself like, hey, check your messages just in case. Actually, I think that campaign works pretty well because and maybe what might be more interesting is how that one worked better than some of my later ones. And the reason was that I was really speaking to the human needs of belonging. So I know everybody that's passionate about something wants to belong to a community surrounding it, and I really managed to speak to that. Uh, and some of my later campaigns was more me forcing something on somebody that they actually, maybe they did have a psychological need for it, but I didn't really connect to it enough in order to make them take action. So that would be something. I remember I remember also there was a little bit of me of let's say my ego in the way of being as effective as I could be. I remember in the copy I said something along the lines of, yeah, I see you're not in this Facebook group yet, even though all the real videographers are in there. So, and then one person replied to me, if you were a real videographer, you would know where they actually hang out, and I haven't seen you there ever. So I was a little bit like pretending to be like this experienced videographer knowing the community, while at that time I was really new. So instead I could have probably written something like, hey, I'm friends with a super experienced videographer and we're trying to build a Facebook community for videographers in Belgium. It would be such an honor if you would join, like a little bit more humility, because people react really well to humility, and like being vulnerable.
Indeed, that's a good point. Like the more kind of, as you said, vulnerable we show ourselves, the more people are willing to connect with us, and they kind of see more themselves into you, and they see you less as a kind of a smoke and mirror type of person.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about something I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing I've noticed is that lots of people struggle figuring out like what to talk about on social media, and something I've been thinking about a lot because I've always had like a natural knack for it, and I've tried to reverse engineer my best posts and see what it is that I was actually expressing. What I noticed was that what I was doing is I was listening to the community as a whole and trying to sense what is it that they are all thinking about but not yet expressing. And then what I try to, so there might be like let's say there's 100 people and 50 of them have the same frustration but nobody's talked about it yet. If you can be the first one to express a thought that everybody's having, it automatically turns you into a voice for the, let's say, the collective subconsciousness. And if I'm thinking about human-centered marketing, that is really strongly connected for me. It's about trying to understand what's going on in the community, what is everybody agreeing on but not expressing, and expressing it first. Because the way the subconscious works is it works with a lot of imagery and connecting a lot of ideas. But as long as it's not really in the on the conscious level, it is most often not um, structured enough to put into words. So being the first person to to put order into the chaos like that really puts you in a strong position because you're giving them a sense of relief. Like, oh, finally, it's this idea is expressed that I've been like using resources for to try to compute myself, and that is kind of like for me the one of the number one keys to humans centric marketing is expressing the ideas other people have not managed to express yet.
That's totally true. And out of curiosity, because that was kind of my next question I would have had for you before you said like in the marketing family, like if you could give some context of like what is the marketing family, like, and after that how you apply that in your work at some point, like what you just said, the reverse engineering or the human centered marketing, just to give more context about like the marketing family, because people now know you but they don't know what you are doing exactly at work, so it would be great for them to know.
So the marketing family is both a community, so a Facebook group, and also my company, my marketing agency. And what we do currently is we help CEOs and executives and entrepreneurs. We help them turn themselves into LinkedIn thought leaders. So basically, turn them into LinkedIn influencers without bikini. And so what we do is we connect them through outreach campaigns to their ideal target audience, and then we also create content for them and do all sorts of stuff to make sure it actually gets seen by their audience. And it is actually very difficult to reverse engineer this process for them to make them a voice of the community. But the what we figured out is that it works really well to ask them open-ended questions, because the people that we work with, they are genuine experts, so they are actually part of their community and they actually care about the subject matter. So what we do is we ask them questions such as, what is a problem you've recently solved in your company, or what is a question you've had from your clients recently, or what is something that is catching your interest right now. And because an expert is a part of a community, but they are, if you would see it as a competence hierarchy, they are among the most competent. That means that they will be able to understand and express what's going on in the industry a little bit sooner than the other 99% that are more going to be followers, or actually 90% of them is going to be followers, and like 9% of them are going to be active members. So just because they are so close to their industry, they will have the capacity to catch things a little bit earlier and express them a little bit earlier on. So what we do is we try to enable them to voice it. So we give them like an opportunity. Okay, so here's 20 minutes. Tell me what you're thinking about, and this gives them the freedom to start expressing it, and then we'll take that, and then we'll have our copywriters like put that into better words. So
right. So basically, by kind of digging in their mind, in their industry and like what's happening like around them, that's how you're able to reverse engineer the process and know what people might want to hear about, and from there on you're building you're crafting the content for them.
yeah, exactly. But they are kind of like antennas for these ideas, and we try to get the signal out of them and then express it better, because it's not because you have the ideas and it's in here that you also have the capacity to express it,
Yeah.
or at least in a written form or whatever.
That's totally true. Like it's not because you have it in your mind that you're able to put it properly on an engaging form type of content. That's totally true. Is there any type of results that you can share with us about like the type of result you've been able to generate for those people, for your clients?
Yeah, so one of my clients, within the first month of us posting for them, we got 156,000 organic views on LinkedIn. So to give you context, most people will spend many hours a week for many years before they get this. We managed to get it in a very rapid tempo by doing the stuff that we do, and we have also gotten that same clients some pretty good leads. One that comes to mind was Lime, the scooters. We got them.
Yeah.
They're about to finalize, I think, the contract with those people. So that's just one of our clients that we managed to ultimately like get a lot of visibility, but also make sure that it was there was a business case, so they were also making money.
That's awesome. So, out of curiosity, have you used your own methods to get that type of client, like Lime, or you've used other type of approach to get that client?
We get all our clients just come from people reacting to my contents.
Wow,
So
that's great.
so at this point, I don't do any kind of outreach on my own personal profile. I just respond to people that are like, "Hey, Stapho, I need some help with X or Y." That's where all the clients come from, and we actually get quite a bit of those, surprisingly, even when I don't post so much. And I think, to be totally fair, I think a lot of that also. So that was something else I wanted to talk about today is the difference between trying to hack a platform and joining a community. When I got started with LinkedIn, I really joined the community. So I got into all these group chats. I got to know cool marketers like yourself. I made sure to get on many like calls with people to understand them, invite them on my show, and now I've been invited on a lot of other shows, and those kind of things, which aren't necessarily maybe scalable, but it allowed me to create a really large, or at least an activated network of people that are always ready to refer me, and be like, okay, if you need LinkedIn, you go talk to Stapho. So it wouldn't be fair to say this all comes from my own content, although a lot of it comes from there. I think most of it probably comes from me getting to know like the major players in the industry, and I've done that honestly by just talking to them over chat and say like, hey, I really like this thing you were doing or whatever, or this other guy told me about you, and just like like building these relationships one by one, and then scaling that through content. That's really been the key for our own lead generation.
No, absolutely. I do think that indeed, like you have to have the right content, yes, but you also have to have the right network at some point. So how would you like, what type of advice, the do's or don'ts would you give to someone that is like, let's say on LinkedIn and maybe is just hanging out now? Like, what would be the advice that you give for a human-centered approach and be part of the community and like, really engage in it, but the right way?
So you mean my advice to generate leads, or to join a community, or which is the end? What is the end goal?
um I would say kind of both, like to join a community, engage, and so on and so forth, kind of generate leads slowly, by posting, engaging, a bit like how you started that. I'm assuming like you started by knowing more people, posting the content that is valuable, and so on and so forth. The leads coming in. So, but what would be the advice, like what you should do and what you should not do?
I think what you should do first is identify the key players. So to identify the key individuals. And second of all, identify the key communities. I will notice that these are super related. So the key communities are going to be led or highly influenced by the key individuals. And what I would do is just start relationships with them one by one. And the way to do that is to figure out a way to give them value. There's many ways to give value. People that are content creators, it's very easy to play to their ego. So they will, if you tell them how much you like their content and how you've actually applied something they've done, that will almost always get you a response from them, unless they're like huge. So that's a really great way to get to become part of the community. Another great way is to do something like this, like start a podcast and figure out how to get some views on it, and then invite people to be on your podcast. Almost always people will say yes because it's extra exposure for them, and it allows you to have a really good excuse to talk to somebody for 30 minutes, an hour, and then actually like become friends over the course of the episode even. So that would be two really major tips, is to just identify the communities and the individuals and have some sort of conversation with them. And to get the conversation, you need to give value. On the content side, I would say really take a good look at yourself and understand what your strengths are and what your strengths aren't. Some people are really phenomenal at just leaving comments on other people's posts and saying useful shit. And I think that is super underestimated. Lots of people could build a brand totally based on this and post like once every 3 months and still be huge. Other people are very capable at using their words, either in spoken words or in written words. I know about myself, I'm pretty strong verbally, so you can ask me difficult questions and I'll most likely have a punchy punchline response to it. But you gotta understand yourself. Let's say maybe you know that your strength is having really deep domain knowledge, but you understand that maybe you get nervous when you're on the camera, or you don't present well on video, or you struggle writing or even finding the time to write. Then you got to just play to your strengths. Use your expertise, but have somebody else write, or maybe even have somebody else in front of the camera. And I think you got to be honest with yourself what it is that you're naturally good at. And a good way to figure that out, in my opinion, is to look back at what have you been doing naturally over the past year. Like if somebody writes you on WhatsApp or whatever, will you type a long response, or will you like send them a video or a voice message?
Yeah.
And what are you getting good results? What are you getting good reactions to? But also, have you been blogging for fun, or do you post like 100 things on your Instagram story for fun? Like, look at the last 10 years, and see what is that you're naturally inclined to do. Because you have most likely practiced some sort of communication or content creation naturally, and if you've spent those hours writing, now is a good time to capitalize on that and use that to further your career and your personal brands.
Right. So basically, get the right key players with the right type of content that reflects who you are. That's indeed a really good beginning. And when you talk about value, there's a, let's say, kind of a misconception of what is valuable content and what is not. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on like how can you really define content that is valuable for your audience? Because most people would say, oh, if I give let's say a lead magnet, it's value. Not exactly, depending on what you're offering. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on like the value terms, or what is really value.
I like to keep it simple in this regard. I divide value into two types. It can either be practical, which means it's somehow useful. So you're giving them something that they can use to improve their results, or in one capacity or another. Could be mindset advice, even could be specific frameworks, could be a calculator or whatever. I would see that as one type of value. The other type of value for me is entertainment. So that's where you see your like viral stories where it's like all emotional, because an emotional spike is entertainment by its definition, in my opinion. But also maybe a joke, even if it's relevant to your audience. You doing some stupid shit could work as well. Just like entertaining people somehow, but you gotta pay attention there, because if it's entertainment, you're often distracting people from their work, uh, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you got to make it so that you're entertaining and it's still driving business goals. So you might tell a joke, but the joke got to have some element of what is it that I actually do, or what is it that I'm actually credible at. Like your viral stories, you can have a really emotional story about your mom or whatever, and but you could have like one line in there that's like, um, she was upset I spent all my time on my lead generation agency, or my B2B lead generation agency. So people are entertained, but they also remember, oh, Stapho or Hugo, he has a lead generation agency. So it's about making sure that your entertainment value still drives business goals one way or another. So people know what it is that you're actually good at. So yeah, short answer, two types of value, in my opinion: practical, useful, or entertaining.
Right. And also, I would add, in terms of, it's not exactly value, but just to complement what you said. I don't remember exactly what show you went on, but I remember that you said something about what is considered as a thought leader is people that kind of show up often. And I'd like you to maybe don't show up often and consistently. I'd like you to kind of summarize that in a better way that I did, of why like being a thought leader is being part of posting consistently, for example.
Mm. So a thought leader. So there's so many ways of breaking it down. What I really like, the the way I like to look at it, is it is somebody within the community that is managing to express truths about the industry before other people manage to express them. Which comes back to what I was talking about before, the human approach. It's like there's going to be in your community, there's going to be people worrying about something. There's going to be people trying to figure something out. They're going to have stress about something. They're going to be excited about something. And in my opinion, the thought leader is the person who is managing to talk about this either first or in an original way, and that is helping other people to form and structure their thoughts about the industry. That is, I think, a good way of looking at. Another good way of looking at is the thought leader is the person that other people will turn towards when they have questions or needs help within a certain industry. But it's always going to be somebody that is a part of the conversation. And I think that's really key. So you got to be a part of the conversation, and you got to bring some kind of value to it. You can't just repeat what other people are saying.
Right.
You got to add some of your own knowledge and expertise to it.
Right. No, you're right. And being a thought leader. I don't remember if you compared it to being a billboard, but I kind of see it that way. Like you kind of need to show up every day, so you're on top of mind of your audience, and it's like being a billboard. Like they see the billboard, and every time that for example, there's a pipe leaking. Well, if they see a billboard about pipe leaking, they will know that if there's a problem, they call that company because that's a billboard that they've seen in the morning, for example. So yeah. Awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to just cover before we wrap it up, or do you have any like end thoughts that to kind of summarize or advise over all of that human approach, human marketing?
I think it's important to talk to your audience, and not just on a scalable way, not just on a big, not just like content seen by lots of people or a show or whatever. I think it's important to call people on the phone and understand what they're thinking about. Because the better you get at your craft, the easier it is to lose touch with how a beginner feels. But ultimately, most of the time, it's beginners, at the very least in your like niche, that are going to need your help in one way or another. So it's good to relate to your peers and to people that are a little bit ahead of you, but you should never lose touch with the people that actually are only at the beginning of their journey. So and for you, for example, at Enrich, like it could be super experienced marketers that just don't know about personalization. You gotta keep the conversation with those people going, because they will force you to express things in more clear and simple ways every time you talk to them, and you can never forget that you need to stay in touch with those people, because you need that perspective in order to simplify things and express it in a way that will actually help people move forward and ultimately generate leads.
Right. It's about kind of relationship. The same thing as if you want to be friend with someone, or if you want to date a girl, you need to build a relationship. You need to stay in touch. You need to to make sure that you're not being forgotten. Awesome. That's a great advice. Well, thanks for your time. That would be all for today. Thanks for joining us at the Human Rich, and looking forward to see what is the next step that you're gonna take with the marketing family, read about you, and continue to do the great work. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, like always.
Bye.